I want to talk a little bit about what you're doing now. And, you mentioned co-producing and working with Kevin Martin of Candlebox. Would you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, me and Kevin did his solo record called Possibility of Being. And we had like a year that we had the studio together, and he kind of wrote that, put that together. And he was going through this, trying to start a solo career. And once again, it was during that period where labels were very uncertain and all that. But we got to make a record, and it was cool. And other than that, we've been friends. We always stay in touch. Like I said, he played drums on one of my things, we're just connected in that way. We had Eric from Hole come in to write on stuff, and he knows so many people. There was a lot of people coming in and out of the door while we were doing that. So it was really cool time for me to be able to do that. I was going to be the guitar player and maybe do the voice and stuff like that. And at that time I was like, I don't think I want to do that. I kind of want to stay in my studio world. And then he kind of got back to revitalizing Candlebox and the new lineup and doing that.
Man, I love that dude's voice.
I'll tell you one thing about him. You want to talk about a work ethic. That guy in the studio is no nonsense, man. He's first guy there, last guy to leave, even me.
Wow.
and he will work all day. He'll vacuum if he has to. Like, he'll do anything.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's a guy that loves to be in the studio and doing work, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's, if you love it, it's work. But yeah.
He lives it. Same with recording. Like, he lives it full on.
Yeah. Far Behind. That was one of the first songs I learned to play on guitar. So moving forward, and I want to kind of let you steer the ship here, Dan, on this one, because it's like your alter ego electronic project, Low Res, which I love. It's so cool. And Dan is more the electronic-ish nerd here than I am, So I want to let you steer the ship on this, Dan. What can you tell us about that project? That's some of your more recent work.
Well, yeah, the record you're probably referring to, I did. I think it was 96, 97.
Oh, wow. That's an older record?
It's old, yeah. I did that when...
Dude, it sounds like it was done recently, but a throwback way.
Yeah, well, like I said, it was right after Civil Vane thing all fell apart. I was lucky enough to have signed a nice publishing deal and things like that. And I had like a good year of time that I could do what I wanted to. Like we said, it was right when like DJ Shadow and all that stuff was happening. And so I dove into that. But I made it old school way. That wasn't even done on Pro Tools. That was all like K2000 sampler, an ADAT, a turntable.
You've been doing some of that, Dan, some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was done the hard way.
Oh, man, it's such a cool sound, though. I don't know. It doesn't seem like, and maybe it's just in my head, but does it seem like you can't really get that same sound doing it the easy way, or is that just me?
No, you nailed it on the head. So I'm trying to do a record. I actually, last couple of years, I've been trying to get a new low res thing done. And I kind of said, I'm not going to do it because I can't make stuff sound. I have every program, every plugin, every synth, everything at my disposal. And I'm feeling so lame because I can't get that. I can't get it to how it was when I did it that way. And now I'm too old and lazy to do it that way. So now my new record, I'm not even going to call it low res. I finally decided it's just going to be my own solo thing. So I finally started. Of course, I've been starting it forever, but with the whole quarantine thing, it was like, all right, well, now I got no excuses. So I finished up whatever mixes I had to finish for other people and said, I'm going to dig into it. So it's going to be different from the low res thing. It has some more live things. There's going to be some guitar, and there's actually some live drums playing over top of, not over top of somewhat, but not loops like you used to do. It's more like I'll have like a synth sequence that I might have some live drums coming. And it's really helped a lot because there's definitely a human element to it.
Sure, yeah.
And there's going to be vocal on it. I don't know what yet. I think there's going to be a lot. I'm writing as we record. It's one of those. There's no song that I have. Oh, here's song A, song B. I'm writing it as I go.
That's a good feeling, though.
It's fun. I get to nerd out. I'm not trying to get a hit single. It's like all what I want to do. But yet, in the back of my mind, I always want to make a hit single. You know what I mean? Not a hit single.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of manipulation with the vocal because I'm not a good singer, so I'll manipulate it. And a lot of pitching and things like that. It's just like it's basically I get to do a thing that everything I'm into, I can just throw it into one blender and do it. So I'm going for it. I finally just committed, and it's been a long time since I've ever really committed to a project for myself. So I'm playing lap steel a lot on it. So that little Daniel Loft stuff in it too, and that type of vibe. So
I mean, it kind of sounds like this is just your baby. This is your skills, and this is just you. Yeah.
I figure if I don't do it now, when? It's like finally time. So it's a statement, really, if anything. But
cool. I look forward to hearing it, man.
Yeah.
Well, especially with you, I know you're talking more about your low res stuff with, kind of the DJ Shadow influence, but Scale It Back is probably one of my favorite songs of all time. I'm a bit of a DJ Shadow fan, and, to hear you talking about this and these are being some influences, I can't wait to hear what you're doing now. It sounds like you're just really, really getting into it. It sounds like it's going to be awesome.
I am. And it's one of those things. It's like, I'm just kind of, not to sound corny or whatever, but this is that kind of time in life right now, or wherever it is in my career, that I feel like, I want to state something. It's a good time to do it. And it's weird how you progress. Like, you always want to do whatever this, but when you just find that time is right, like you're not forcing it, time just is right. So if anything I've learned over the years, it's to, when that time does appear, to jump on it and take hold. So
and it just goes to show that we're all music nerds here. I think that's why a lot of us do the studio thing. What we do, we love to make records because we love music regardless of the style. And I can speak for myself, and it sounds like you're basically the same way. We're similar in a lot of ways, that it's exciting to work on different styles because you get to work different muscles.
Yeah.
Moving forward, James Blunt, you worked on Back to Bedlam. You're Beautiful. I mean,
it's a good one.
Anytime anybody ever mentions that song, I didn't realize you worked on that till I read your bio. And, you mentioned that, and immediately that melody goes in your head, and it's an earworm for sure. Great song, great record. You mind to talk a little to that?
Yeah, that was a great one. There's those times when kind of like a Pearl Jam thing in a way. I mean, yes, no, but it's one of those things didn't see coming, fell in my lap. I mean, it didn't really fall in my lap. There was all these weird long road that connected me to get to that,
Right.
But certainly didn't expect it. I was in England and looking for work, and it was like this English guy who worked for my management company in LA at the time, but then he had left and he was back in England. So I looked him up, and he ends up being the vice president of like EMI publishing. I'm like, well, that was a lucky. And he goes, "What are you doing here in England?" And I'm like, I heard you were here. I just thought I'd give you a shout to see if you want to meet up for a beer at a pub or something. And I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I'm vice president of EMI pub." I'm like, "Get out of here." Like, you were driving me around in LA to go to meetings, it was like funny. And he goes, "Well, I just signed this guy, and it happened to be James." And I'm like, he told me the story. He's like, he just got out of the Royal Armed Forces. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't sound very rock and roll immediately, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, if you think so, and all that. So I go meet him at a pub, and he's the nicest, coolest dude, but short hair. I mean, you've seen James, good looking short guy. And he literally come out of the Royal Air Force, or not Air Force, but he was like one of the guys with the hat and everything, like the.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. It blew me away. And his father is like a very famous English soldier, like a hero.
Like, I have this mental image of the guy with the fuzzy hat standing in front of Buckingham Palace singing "You're Beautiful."
Dude, that's what he was. But like,
wow.
Military, like he's hardcore trained in all this. So I'm not really seeing the connection, but I really like him. It's really cool. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And we go back to EMI, to the offices, and Declan hands me the leather-bound calendar for the studio that they have at EMI. He goes, just whatever dates are open, just write in your name, and you can fill those up with James and whoever else you might want. And I'm like, I almost died and went to heaven. I'm like, are you kidding me? I come here as this American, not knowing any, I'm like, all of a sudden I'm writing my own name into the calendar dates of the studio at EMI for free. I'm like, this is crazy.
Wow.
And so I was friends with a guy named Chris Gentry, who's a guitar player for a band that was very popular over there called Menswear. He's a superstar. Nobody knows him here, but in Britain, they were superstars. And coolest guy ever. And like, well, Chris wants me to solo thing. So I'm like worried about Chris's thing. I'm just writing my name and stuff. So there we go. I show up to the sessions and we sit at a piano on a piano bench together, and he starts playing me Beautiful. He starts playing me Goodbye, My Lover. He had like a 20-song CD that I went home and listened to, and we just started doing demos of them.
Wow. And that's an incredible album.
And so I basically, for that, he ended up coming to LA. I was supposed to work more on the record because it took about a year because that was a publishing deal. Then he got signed to his label, and then he came to LA, which then I happened to be back in LA at that point. And then the producer, I think, who did Beck, ended up being the main producer for that record. Unfortunately, I got caught up. This is a whole nother story for another interview. I got caught up with Courtney Love project that went south and totally derailed me off doing the James record, the rest of it, which would have been a much better record for me to work on. But we got to we demoed and I helped him put together the songs and the arrangements and all that.
That's a big feather in your cap. And, that had to be, it sounds like he was a really cool guy. And, for those songs to mostly be, it sounds like they were mostly there, but they needed some of the pieces put together, and you got to be a part of that. Is that what?
Yeah, it was cool too, because it was, once again, it was so unassuming, and it was very low key, and he was just a simple songwriter. So it was a little bit of kind of he's not like a classical trained piano player. He hack out a song on a piano or on a guitar, and I'm kind of a hack at a lot of things too. So we just kind of. But I was a little more experienced. I guess I could offer that or whatever. And we, I just kind of helped direct him to where that's going to be a song. I do remember this, thinking not much of it and being more excited about the Chris Gentry stuff and these other things I was working on. And I brought it home that one of the nights to some friends there in England. But yeah, this is when I'm working. And every single person I kept wanting to take that one out and play on something else. They're going, that one's a hit. That's a hit. That's a hit. And I go, you think? I remember myself I kept saying it. You think? Like I didn't hear it, which makes me an idiot because I'm thinking, I don't know if that's a single. I don't know. And obviously it was like the number one international single of the year, but
right.
Song. I'm just thinking any song that gets big enough for Weird Al to make a parody of it.
You know what? I didn't even know he did.
Oh, well, what's it? Oh man, I'm trying to remember. I
don't know.
He did. It was called You're Pitiful, but if I remember correctly, he recorded it and then didn't release it at request.
That's a good one.
You're pitiful. We met Weird Al in L.A. actually at a church, and he was like the most zen guy you would ever meet. So nice. So you're in Pittsburgh now. You're working out of the Vault studio. Tell us a little bit about that.
Once in a while I get lucky. Like I said, came here not really, not for music necessarily. My wife's from here, and different family reasons we ended up out here. I ended up meeting Bob Cushion, who owns the Vault. I hope everybody looks it up. The chief engineer, his partner, is Jimmy Hoyson, who has 7 Grammys to his name.
Oh, just a couple, huh? Just a couple.
Yeah. I look at him, I'm jealous all the time. Wonderful guys, and they started the studio, and they have a Neve, and just a blessing to come across them. And I had gotten the studio, like I had told you earlier about that. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this thing? I mean, I'm blessed I have it. What am I going to do with it? It's like sitting in my garage. What am I going to do with it? I reached out to them when I found out about them and said, hey, what do you think about me just moving my studio in here? And you guys can use it. I just don't want it sitting in my garage. We ended up developing a relation and all that. And so now we're really pushing the studio. It's a beautiful place. So lucky to have that in my life now. Like there's my Neve and Studer combo that we all dream of. And Bob runs such an amazing facility. He just runs it like a pro. And with Jimmy there, like his credits are just insane. He worked at the Village for many years, and then at Capitol recording studios for forever. So his credits are longer than all our arms together. He's worked with everybody. So yeah, me being able to be part of that crew is pretty cool. And it's kind of funny to them because like, what's this guy from Seattle doing here, with that? So it was a nice, lucky thing where we all met in Pittsburgh. So I'm originally from Pittsburgh, went to LA, had this great career, came back, for his family, and they opened the studio. So
you mentioned yesterday when we were on the phone about the Grammys and what happened. You got invited to the Grammys, and the whole COVID-19 virus thing derailed what was going to happen there.
Yeah, well, I got invited to the Grammy listening things, like for the voting. I hope I'm even saying it right. I don't know. It's some kind of thing. It's not the Grammy show, but close enough for me. I was like, I'll go. But it's like, of course, it's during this. So the first part of it's like, you're invited to blah, 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 blah. I'm like, this is awesome. And it's like, but due to the coronavirus, this will be done virtually. And I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, what time in life I get invited to something and we got to do it virtual. But nonetheless, I'm excited to be part of it.
Still cool, though. That's still an honor. So congratulations. Your Sputnik T-shirt you're wearing is in Berry Hill, Tennessee. A great, wonderful studio that Vance Powell and his business partner that you worked with, specifically with the band Pet Clinic, right? That was last summer during Summer NAMM, right?
Interesting.
Yes. And one of the members in Pet Clinic is from around the Muscle Shoals area, somewhere around here.
John Henderson, the keyboard.
Yeah, we met at NAMM. Seemed, real nice guy. How's that whole project?
They're still working on it. They had some ups and downs, but it's still going. John, me and John literally talk almost at least via text because he's a gear fanatic and nerd. So it's like every day there's a text with, hey, have you heard this? Have you ever used this mic? Have you ever did it? What about? So we do that all the time. Also, I want to mention, speaking of Sputnik, so the last record I did before this whole thing went down was I did the new Ghost Towns record that Vance mixed, who Vance got me the gig. He wanted me to engineer it, which was an honor. So that record, of course, is now on hold. They were supposed to go out with the Stones, the opening act for the Stones this summer, and ZZ Top. And of course, all the touring stopped. But we did a cool record I got to do with Vance mixed it. Kevin Bowie did the producer, songwriter on it, co-writer with them. It's like another one, like new for me, or was cool to do. It was all completely authentic kind of blues rock music.
Awesome.
And
I look forward to hearing that.
Yeah. So Advance, of course, mixed it. So
and he's incredible.
Yeah. Anything he mixes is good. Yeah. So I love Sputnik. I love Vance.
Yeah. That's a great, Berry Hill's awesome. Sputnik's awesome.
Berry Hill. Insane. It's like
it's a studio, like 4 or 5 studios on every block.
It's 7-Elevens on every corner.
I know, right? You said you're texting daily or very often with the dude from Pet Clinic about gear. How much do you nerd out on gear, really? I mean, or is it? I mean, because I guess that's an engineer to an engineer question, because that can be one of those things. You know what I'm saying? I may not be asking the question very well, but
I mean, I nerd out quite a bit. I can get. I mean, I love it. You know what I mean? I totally can nerd out about it. I can hobby out on it all day. At the same time, like recording my record I'm doing now, because it's mine, because I'm not working for anybody, I can get lazy and just go, that might will work because it's the closest one next to me. Or you know what I mean? So I can go both ways. I can be I can pretty much talk about any piece of gear forever. That's the road that, I love talking about gear. But then I can also be completely the other way on it too. Like, that'll work, this will work, whatever. It's just,
It brings us back to what's the best microphone to record a cardboard box.
Yeah, exactly. I remember one time specifically, I had a singer I was working with, and I'm like, God, I wish I had, I don't even remember what the mic was. I'm like, this is not the right mic for him. But I'm like, okay, I hate to say this, but I'll fix it in the mix because that sounds good, but it's not the perfect sound for me. But I'm going to screw up the performance if I go in there and stop what's going on. Like, hey, let me change this microphone.
Yeah,
a lot of times that's just kind of like stick with the moment and go with it because you can kill the vibe.
I mean, yeah, you have to work with what you have at that moment. I mean,
exactly.
Crazy unlimited time period and dollar amount. But I mean, isn't that part of the fun? Isn't that part of the attack, the creativity of it all? Is that you've got to do what you got to do with what you have. And And even if you do have the most extensive mic room or whatever, isn't it sometimes you're just picking that one and you're hope, you don't know. You know what I mean? I worked at Sunset Soundwatch, and like the mic room in there, I was just like, I just wanted to put everything on everything just so I said I used it. You know what I mean? Because I might not ever get to do it again. There's those moments, but there's other moments when you can make a whole record on a couple 57s and it's going to sound killer.
And,
Yep.
and this is probably going to be sacrilege to both of you guys. I'm more on the performance and the listening side of things than I am on the production side of things. It may be my ears are just not as good. Probably my ears are not as close to as good as you guys are, but there's been times where I've been in the room with engineers that have been doing the microphone merry-go-round with my horn or something like that. And, maybe by the second or third mic change, I'm like, I don't hear a difference.
Yeah, you kill the whole vibe. You kill the whole thing.
Like, man, I'm just trying to play in tune, man.
Well, you make a really good point,
And if you're in
Dan,
tune, that's what matters. But
you made a really good point, and I love the way you described it, the microphone merry-go-round, because we can nerd out and waste precious time. That's one of the things we were talking again yesterday, Dave, about having a console is, do you need a console to make records? Well, no, you don't. You can just have a laptop and do great records, but I can get drum sounds in 5 minutes. And it's like, hey, go in there. We'll go hit on some stuff, make sure I'm getting good signal, which I do that before the band shows up anyway. But I'm like, just go in there and just groove. And it just, by the time they get loosened up, hey, what kind of click do you want? We'll send that to you. Let's get headphone levels. By the time you do that, they're loosened up and everybody's ready to go.
And there's different scenarios. For instance, let's go back to so the Ghost Sounds record I just did, hired to be an engineer. That's what I'm hired there to be. So I got to take off producer hat, all those kinds of things. I'm there, and who's going to mix it? Vance Powell. Vance tells me here's what he said, you know what to do? I'm like, no, dude, tell me. Like, I don't know what to do. He goes, just make it clean, man. Record it right. Make it clean. I'm like, okay. So that was my job, and that's what I did. I didn't get fancy or go too out there. There are a couple of calls I made here and there as I felt more comfortable, and as he had heard roughs and going, yeah, you're good, man. Try, because Vance has a specific setup that he's coming for.
Mm-hmm. He does.
Generally speaking, it's like, get it to him sounding good so he can mix it. Because that's one thing. Then a whole another drastic thing would be like, I'm noticing working on my record here, I've got all these plugins, all this stuff that I've been using for, say, that the November Sierra that I just mixed from London, or whatever that I'm using for mixes. And when I'll get a couple tracks going, and then I'll try some plugins real quick just to see a preliminary, just to see where it's going to go later when I mix it, And now I'm on this new kick where I'm like, I hate plugins. Like everything I started putting the plugins and stuff, and it's killing every bit of life and soul that I just recorded. Now that's whatever. I don't know.
No, that's...
next thing I mix, like if somebody sends me a record, I'll probably be throwing up some plugins, some EQs, and some different stuff. But I'm finding interesting how all of a sudden now I don't want to use any, like I'm mostly kind of think I'm going to keep what I'm recording and just keep it.
Well, that's just, you're liking what you're hearing at the source, right? So, you're just capturing it.
I can't say that for any particular thing. Like from record to record, project, song to song, those things change. And again, that's the fun of it. That's the challenge and the whole thing. Like for instance, I'm sure people will think I'm crazy or have a lot to say about it, but like I don't understand templates. Like I can't use templates. Like there's just never a situation where one template's going to match what I'm going to do from song to band.
I do and I don't.
I get it for inputs and stuff, but still I change my mind.
Well, I do to a degree where I know I'm always going to reach for this plate reverb plugin or whatever, but it's like I'm going to use this delay or this delay is going to more than likely be what I'm going to go for. And I'll have them like disengaged or something just so I don't have to recreate the tracks or whatever.
I find that the fun part. It's like,
but yeah, I find myself changing that so often that the template's almost kind of pointless.
But then there's these guys who are like the greatest mixers in the world, and I hear them, and they have these templates. It works for them. So obviously don't
I'm constantly changing.
It never works for me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an
I'm
art, not a
constantly
science.
changing what I'm. Yeah, well, yes and yes, but I'm constantly changing what I'm doing. It's like I'll think, oh, this is the thing. This is what I'm going to do, and then a week later, I'm like, I hate that. I've got a better way. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dave, for joining us and for spending so much time. This is an honor for me, first of all.
Dude, I'm unemployed. I'm sitting here in my own studio time.
But man, seriously, thank you.
It's been man. I've enjoyed every second of it. I'm sure I would have more questions if we kept going. It's just yours is a brain to pick.
Well, look. So, if you had some advice to give to, I don't know, you kind of got going in this at 17, 20-year-old Dave, what would you say if you had, as Lid Shaw says on his podcast that you were a guest on, the Wayback Machine? What kind of advice would you give young Dave?
Get a real job.
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. And
I think I'd be the last person to give advice to anybody. I don't know, man. It's funny how life works. It's like any of the things that I have that people might consider success or whatever have all just been, you're just doing what you do and you're just moving forward and you're keeping good attitude about it. And like, you just can't plan it. You can't plan it. So you let the universe deliver what it's going to give to you and you do your best at it while you're doing it.
I think that's great advice. Let the universe deliver it to you. It'll come to you. And just do day to day. Your humility is very impressive too. I mean, because you've worked on some great stuff and still are.
When you try to force it, it ain't going to happen anyway.
Are you guys familiar with Bo Burnham? He was a stand-up comedian.
I don't know.
I'm surprised I'm not, because I'm a huge stand-up
I like stand-up
comic fan.
Oh man, he's got a special on Netflix.
Oh God, we'll go to
called Make Happy. Well, the only reason I'm asking is because he was being interviewed on one of the late night talk shows one night. I don't remember which one. And the host asked him the same question that Grant just asked you. And, his advice was, you said get a job. His advice was don't do it. Me standing here and telling you to chase your dreams is like a lottery winner telling you buy a ticket. The system works.
Exactly. Right. Well, my answer to say get a job is because, well, there is some truth to that. Obviously, at 17 years old, somebody told me to get a job. I'm like, although I did, granted, it was just working at a record store. The point is, I did things that, here's my point. One thing I've noticed when I see newer bands, especially around our time now, is there's this sense of, I can't record, or I can't do this, or we can't do that because we don't have any money, or we don't have a record deal, or any of these kinds of things. And like, I remember, like I said earlier in the interview, how naive and just ambitious I was. That those things I didn't even think about it. Like, I just got a job, and I'd save my money and I'd get into the studio I could afford. And we would just do things. So like this supposed waiting for somebody to sign you thing or anything like that is so silly to me. Like, you make your own future happen, right? So you have to, whether it's buying gear to do it at home, whether it's getting into a place. I think there's a positive to both. I think when you go into a place, you learn something. It's a new experience. Recording in a real studio might not come out with anything, but the experience of doing it, you learn the art of recording. That's cool. Doing it at your house and owning your own gear and doing it that way, can't help but learn doing it that way. Point being is that you don't sit there and cry and have an obstacle that we can't afford to do it or we can't do it. You make things happen. And that's, so when I jokingly say get a job because back in the day, that's what, your parents or people would be saying.
Oh, yeah.
Because there are those times when you're not making any money and you're broke and you better deal with it if you're ultimately to be getting your rehearsal place paid for or whatever it might be,
Mm-hmm.
I miss some of that determination and gung-ho that I used to see in bands back in the days in the 80s and the 90s when, you just did what you had to do to get it done. Some of that seems to be lacking, but what do I know?
That's a lot of wisdom.
are you familiar with the term perfection paralysis? Have you heard that?
Yeah, and I can generally guess what you're going to say, but
it sounds like that to me, that you've got people that are so afraid that if it doesn't turn out perfect, it's not worth doing at all. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, and you got to fail a million times. It's like getting a record deal. I mean, here's something that's another thing I'm going to say that's missing is that you used to have to you start a band and you come up with money and you make your own demo. Then you make another demo. You make another demo. And then you maybe send it to a label or somehow it gets into an A&R guy's hand. And then they sign you to a demo deal. Then you make 2 or 3 more demos with record company money, but it's maybe a few days paid for in the studio. It's amazing. You can't believe it. And then so by the time and then they ignore you. Then you start a new band or whatever might happen in those times. The time you actually get into a studio and you're making a record, thus the names Pearl Jam or any of those people, Alice, by the time they're making a real record, they're seasoned. It's not like they wrote their first 12 songs in the rehearsal room and then went and made the record. They already been through this process and worked with different producers and engineers in different studios and started learning how the art of making a record is before they even pushed record the first day on the real record.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally lacking. And as much as we kind of bitched about the record companies and the man keeping us down kind of thing with them, there was that process where you have something to work towards, maybe get a demo deal, then the demo deal to the label, and it actually made bands grow. It was a nurturing way of, and it was competitive, and all the other bands wanted it too. And you know, your bro got that demo deal, and oh man, my band's better than them. We got, you know, that it fueled this whole ambition and creativity and a learning experience before you ever made records, and that is not existing anymore.
I haven't thought about that.
Yeah, it was a way that was there 1,000 things wrong with the industry then? Of course, just like there is now still, but you didn't have that element of going up the ranks, as it were.
You know, I guess I didn't realize how incredibly different it was. I mean, I knew it was different, but I never thought of it like that. And yeah, wow. Do you think that might be part of the reason that we're not seeing as, because we started out the interview, you talking about how it was so strange you were working with this group of, you know, teenagers that were making this music that was a rock band. And I wonder if that's why we're not seeing as much of that anymore.
I think that was, you know, it's a great way to come full circle here, is that I think that's what was so cool for them. I don't know if they even know it or appreciate it yet, but they actually got to experience how, not in the full extent, but what it was like recording in a real studio with real, you know, me, Bob, Jimmy coming in, saying hello and checking out, you know, that if they break up tomorrow or whatever, they're going to be able to look back 10, 15 years, go, whoa, I made a record in a real studio, or I did a recording in a real studio, because I just don't think that happens that much to that age.
That's interesting. That's a really good point. And there is a lot of growth that happens when you're going through all the different processes.
Yeah, like it would probably be hard for them now to go back, like say if they have to do another recording and it's at some guy's house or something. Because now they have that taste of what it was. And I think
exactly.
Make them know, oh, this is how, you know, it gives them a new bar, a new level that they're at. You know, even if this demo is just, you know, I don't think it's the best thing in the world yet. I bet you the next one is going to be a million times better because now they know.
And that's
awesome.
Process. Is there anything that you wish somebody would ask you that you've never gotten to talk about?
Oh, probably as soon as we're done, I'll go, oh man, I should have brought that up.
I will have to get you next time then. Yeah, whenever you think of it, and you know, and think of all those bands that you wish people had heard that just, you know, never got that platform.
Yeah, I would keep meaning to do something on like my website or something, have like a playlist of the ones who didn't get a chance, kind of songs or bands or whatever, you know.
So some of those bands, you know, we of course every scene has had some of those bands, but I'm thinking about a couple of bands that were big in the Birmingham, Alabama scene, and in the mid 2000s, early mid 2000s, when alt rock was really big in Birmingham, and
right.
You know, a couple of those bands come to mind that it's some of the best music I've ever heard.
Dude, all of North Alabama was that way.
I almost, now that I just remembered one, there's this band called Martyr Reef that I did, put a ton of effort into them, and they're actually putting together this is tongue in cheek, they're putting together a greatest hits because they never had it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of
That's
course, yeah.
awesome.
The one member of the band, very good friend of mine, Eric Johnson, he does video work as a living. He recorded oh my God, like almost every minute of their existence.
Wow. And that's not the Cliffs of Dover, Eric
It's
Johnson.
incredible. So it's this long process of him editing it together. He even flew over to England and filmed a project I was doing in Neston, England, in this amazing studio called Ape Studios. And he's putting that together, and they should have been big. It's like how that didn't happen. They got to do a lot of cool things. So that's one. But yeah, there's other things too. But yeah.
I'm glad you told me about that, because that's one of the things that makes me.
You guys are some tracks.
Okay, yeah, because that's one of the things that makes me sad sometimes, thinking about how much great music there's out there that, it's just going to go totally under the radar. And you almost have to get lucky to hear it.
Dude, the North Alabama area, you remember, Dan, the time and era, the early 2000s that you're speaking of, Huntsville, Alabama, all of that from Birmingham, Huntsville, and the Shoals area. There was a thing. There was like a jam band and an indie scene that was happening. There was some bands that still to this day, I'm like, I don't know how that didn't blow up.
It's a shame too, because there was just as much work and passion put into them as the other ones that did. And it's just, the luck of the draw sometimes.
It goes back to buy a lottery ticket, the system works. But at the same time, you got to be in it to win it. So I don't know. What am I talking about?
Look at a band like a band like Jellyfish or something, who I thought was amazing, and yet they never I didn't hear of Jellyfish for the first time until about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And it was just because a friend of mine that's into, he's into some of the more indie stuff which I thought I was. And like, lo and behold, here they are. And I was like, how have I never heard this? Here is this, listen to it.
Well, Dan, you realize, other than other aspects, you are the most hipster guy I know in terms of, you've probably never heard of this band.
Oh, I know more. I know bigger hipsters. I'm going to send bigger hipsters to you. I'm going to. Dude. That's a threat.
Dude.
Be your new band name.
Dude.
Bigger hipsters.
Bigger hipsters. There you go.
You've never heard
It's a bunch of really tiny people, the bigger hipsters. That's like I was in a band years ago it was like the Five of Us or something like that. And there was only like 3 members. And it was like in a band called Another Girl.
I think the new band name everybody's using is the Murder Hornets.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. There you go.
I think that only works if you're a band that's coming to the U.S. from Asia, because otherwise, it's not authentic at that point.
On death metal band.
No, it'd have to be ukulele death metal. I want to start a ukulele metal band.
I hate so much every word that came out of your mouth.
Oh, that's the most ironic thing ever. That's the most hipster thing. Okay, never mind. I just did something more hipster than you. So my point is you are the one that knows like the most obscure bands off the planet. And I'm like, how in the world did you dig this up? Did you find some stuff that's like just way off I don't know how. Anyway, Dave, thank you so much. This has been an honor.
Cool.
Tell Melissa hello, and thanks for letting us borrow you for a while. Hopefully I'll get to come up there and see you guys, check out the vault.
Check out the vault for sure,
and man, come down here, dude. You're welcome.
Well, we talked about that, so let's keep that option open. All right, cool. Well, I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for your time, man. Take it easy and take care of yourself. It's
all right.
All right, man. Peace, brother. We'll talk soon.
Talk soon.
What an absolute honor it was to have Dave Hillis with us today, to just get a chance to talk with about so many things I've had questions about over the years. So much of the work that he has done has been part of just my musical influences from the time I was a child, especially Temple of the Dog and Pearl Jam's 10 and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden, all of that grunge scene from Seattle. So I've been wanting to ask so many of these questions my whole life, and I finally got a chance to talk with someone who was directly involved with it. Thank you so much, Dave, for your time to talk with us, and it means a lot. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of things. Hope you guys enjoyed these interviews, and thank you again so much to each of you who take the time out of your day to spend with us and listen to our episodes. please follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You know where to find us. We also have a Patreon. Check us out there. I would also like to remind you that it helps us so much to get positive ratings and reviews from you guys. Thank you to those of you who have already done that. And if you haven't had a chance, please just take a few seconds and give us a rating and a review. We greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and have a great day. Stay groovy.